I never thought there was going to be a donation from Musk in the first place. It was something invented by, dare I say, your colleagues in the Sunday Times, as far as I can work out.
Speaking of Elon Musk, as long ago as, let me check my notes, yesterday, the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage was on TV calling Mr. Musk a hero. He met the billionaire in Florida in December, and apparently it was discussed that he might make a sizable donation to Farage's party. But things moved pretty fast in Musk world, and last night Musk posted on X, the Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes. What are we to make of all this? Well, here to help us work it out is the former head of communications for Reform UK, Gawain Towler. Hello, Gawain.
Hi, Hugo.
Thanks very much for being with us.
To be fair, it was interviewed on Saturday, broadcast on Sunday. But yeah,
when he called Musk a hero, yes. Well, you know, a day.
It's taking a day's a long time. 2 days. Whew.
Yeah, a day and a half is a long time in politics. So my fervent apologies for that. This is quite bad for your friend Nigel, isn't it? To fall out with such a powerful supporter. What do you mean no? Of course it is.
Well, in one way of looking at it, yes, of course.
Yeah.
There's a possibility for a big donation. But actually, I think it shows something rather impressive from Farage. There's a possibility for a big donation, and he still calls Musk out. Mm-hmm. That, I think, shows character. That shows integrity. That's something you want from your political leaders.
Right.
And the ability to turn around to somebody who has made an offer of some sort, we don't know exactly what it is, particularly on the technical side as well, possibly financial, and to turn around and say, no, mate, you're wrong on this. That takes a certain amount of cojones, shall we say.
Do you think he disagreed with them on principle, or do you think
he disagreed with them on fact?
But do you think he disagreed with them because he took the balance of whether it was worth more to have Musk support?
Farage works on principle. He always has for 30 years. Yes.
Right.
That's how he is. Sometimes he annoys people, sometimes he doesn't, but he sticks with what he believes is right.
You don't think there's a practical consideration there of him thinking, I don't want to be the guy who's tied too closely to Simon Robinson?
No, I don't think he made an empirical decision about the weights of this side and weights of that side. No, he felt that was wrong. And now, when it comes to Musk's involvement in this, and I see his latest tweet has made me laugh when I was sitting outside the studio.
He's asking whether America should overthrow the tyrannical British government.
Something like that.
Does Reform have a view on that?
Apart from laughter. You've got to remember, Musk's timeline over the years has been at least a third tongue-in-cheek memes and things. I suspect the overthrow of the British government comes into the bracket of tongue-in-cheek memes.
But he is... Yes, I'm sure it does. I'm not sure it does. I'm not sure it does.
Really it does.
I'm 60% sure it does. But he is erratic. He is erratic. He does say relatively extreme things. He did call Jess Phillips a rape apologist, genocide denier, or whatever it was.
Ghastly.
Pretty ghastly indeed.
No.
Was it a mistake in the first place for Nigel Farage to have got too cozy with it?
And not at all. And I think that despite the deeply intemperate comments that some of the comments that
deeply
Musk
intemperate
made,
is all we're getting there.
Pretty vile,
right?
Comments that have been made, and yes, one shouldn't be encouraging that sort of personal attack, qua personal attack. But I think there's much more fuss about Musk's comments. Mm-hmm. What he has done. There have been hundreds of articles for many years about the rape gang crisis in this country.
Story revealed by the Times in 2011. Yes,
and Andrew Norfolk. And then you had Sue Reid and you had others going into this at length. But whilst we saw, I think, 220-odd people imprisoned of that, what we haven't seen is a root and branch look at how this was allowed to continue. And I think what Musk has done, for good or ill, and I think for good, is to blow that open. This has blown that open. And the way that Starmer today has shifted to a certain extent, let's talk about Musk. Mm-hmm. And Musk and millions of people in the country are saying, no, let's not talk about Musk per se. Let's talk about the fact that our authorities, our institutions allow this to continue. And we have all sorts of examples of girls being arrested for being drunk with their rapists. We've got all sorts of examples of police looking the other way, of social services looking the other way, politicians not really engaging, politicians being Simon Danczuk was given a really hard time for what he did in Rochdale. Sarah Champion had a hard time, and Trier. These people who did stand up were pushed back. And I think that what Musk has done with his colossal reach has blown that consensus apart. So that, no matter how the intemperate language, no matter how some of those vile comments were made, that is a good thing.
Well, I mean, but Starmer was the DPP who greenlit the prosecutions of a lot of these people
and Jackie Smith was the Home Office
and the police who were working on these cases say they valued his support. Jess Phillips has worked her entire career in safeguarding girls.
And yet her description of the mass thing in Cologne was just like a Saturday night in Birmingham. Let me ask the question. She's not absolutely whiter than white on this.
Let me ask the question. There are the two aspects to this story going back to, and again, as a leader writer on the Times, this is something I was writing about 15 years ago, a huge amount.
And yet it continues.
Well, I mean, whether it continues to the same extent it was happening then, the point being, there are two aspects of this story. One is safeguarding the girls who were being abused at the risk of abuse. The other side of this story is getting stuck into the communities where these abusers come from. It seems to me Reform, like Musk, is much more interested in the second half of that than the first half of that.
I don't think that's true. I remember back in the day when I was UKIP, being in Rotherham, we had a bunch of Rotherham councillors. I remember talking to some of the victims then. This is 2007, 2008, 2009. Soon after it started to break, soon after Norfolk's superb journalism, and dealing with some of the fallout then. So this is something I know Nigel's been engaged in, but Nigel has always been very much, at that time, he was focused on the big picture of Brexit. And whilst he was aware of this wasn't his... UKIP didn't have the capacity to do 7 different things, and this is one of those things it should have done and could have done maybe more. We did wave sticks, but I think one of the... In some ways, a little bit like Enoch Powell making the Rivers of Blood speech meant that nobody could talk about immigration for 30 years. And it was a colossal mistake for him to have made that speech. It was an appalling speech, and it killed discussion. In the same way, back when Channel 4 was just about to produce its documentary, Nick Griffin of the BNP was out in Rotherham looking for evidence. And because the BNP had picked this up, the authorities pushed it back. And because it was Nick Griffin that did that, and the BNP that did that, the state, the establishment, decided it was too impolitic. It would give the far right... You see what I'm saying? And I think that is... We, society, decided the rise of the far right was more scary than the mass rape of girls.
Do you think there are going to be Reform supporters, Nigel Farage supporters, who are disappointed by his refusal to embrace and support Tommy Robinson?
Oh, there have been for ever since day one.
Why?
Because some of them believe the hype, some of them believe Tommy Robinson's perspective, and I don't think Tommy Robinson is the worst man in the world. He's not. I wouldn't call him a friend. He's not somebody I like, but he's not the worst man in the world. Some of the people he works with, I think, are far, far worse than him, and I think that is part of the problem. I do think that the book that was thrown at Robinson, or Yaxley Lemon, or call him what, is much bigger and heavier because of his political perspective than it would have been if he was somebody else. But to call him a political prisoner, I think, is overstating it.
He was jailed for.
I know what he was jailed for, but the point is, I think he has been on the receipt of an awful lot more than somebody in a different political, if somebody on the left would have been, because he is of the right. And I think that is true. So, is he a political prisoner? No. Has the punishment meted out to him over the years been disproportionate because of his politics? Quite probably.
Let's talk about what happens now. Presumably, first up, the idea of a big donation from Elon Musk is dead in the water. Yeah, but Elon Musk a couple of years ago was saying Trump should retire. So, hey, who knows? So you think he might still come around? I think the relationship between Farage and Trump is so much stronger than a small spat on the internet. Mm-hmm. Yes. Do I think... I never thought there was going to be a donation from Musk in the first place. It was something invented by, dare I say, your colleagues in the Sunday Times, as far as I can work out. But it is an interesting relationship. Musk is... We see that's an ash tree, that's an oak, that's an elder. He sees the wood. We're in it. He sees the wood in a way that we find it much harder to do as Brits in that political sphere. And so his vision, and he is a genius, but he's brilliant at sending things into space. I'm not entirely sure he's brilliant at spotting all the details on the ground in the UK. So look, he said on X that he likes the look of Rupert Lowe, who's another one of Reform's
yes, MPs. I know, but maybe he'll be annoyed by Rupert in a couple of weeks' time. Who knows?
Do you think is there going to be any push in Reform to change leader in order to...
You've literally seen the Reform membership under Farage increase from 29,000 in June to 175,000 now, and you think that... And that's all under... this is all before Musk kicked off. all of those people suddenly go, "Ooh, no, I don't want Nigel." No,
Gawain,
they want him.
You yourself are now 14-1 to become leader.
So I gather.
Maybe you're playing this wrong.
I think the polling was fixed. I'm absolutely convinced the polling was fixed. I must be, I don't know, 2-1 or evens.
Gawain Towler, thank you very much. Gawain is the former head of communications for Reform UK.